Okay, I think we'll start. Welcome everybody. It's really great to be here this morning. I say it's really great to see you, but I can't see everybody, so welcome anyway. I'm going to be hosting today. I'm Ellie Fry, and I'm a regeneration manager with Blaenau, Gwent. We also have Tristan Jones from Sell2Wales at Welsh Government, and also Howard Jacobson from Business Wales. I think today what we're going to do is go through the pieces of information that both Tristan and Howard have to share with you, and then we'll have a Q&A. There is a Q&A tab. If you look on the tabs, there's a Q&A tab on the screen. If you can use that for your questions, please. And then if you use the chat for sort of good mornings, sharing contact details, that sort of information, then it'll help us try and draw out the questions. We anticipate there are going to be quite a few today. So I've been involved with regeneration and local economic development for more years than I really care to remember. Local regeneration is all about improving the area, but also enabling local employment and local procurement. And I think there have been two important developments over the last few years. The decarbonisation agenda, which is growing across Wales and the UK, and buying local being more important under the decarbonisation agenda, and also local people waking up to the importance of the local economy in a global marketplace and buying local within the local economy. So in the UK, the public sector actually spends £290 billion on procurement. In Wales, we spend over £6 billion per annum. So there's quite a lot of money that's being spent via the public sector that we really want to make sure local businesses get. Part of the work I've been involved with over the number of years I don't wish to talk about has included working with both Sell2Wales and Business Wales. Business Wales is currently assisting and has assisted many SMEs in Wales, not just to access new public sector contracts, but to grow both new and established companies through helping them with procurement. Sell2Wales platform contains all large and small scale procurement opportunities in Wales, and now has the benefit of quick quotes. So with that introduction, what I'd like to do now is hand you over to Tristan, who will begin our session this morning with Sell2Wales, quick quotes and current opportunities.
Thanks, Ellie. Good morning, everybody. Bore da bawb. Thanks for joining onto this session. This one is going to be kind of a bit of a run through for those of you who may be familiar with Sell2Wales. I'm hoping that this will jog a few ideas, maybe, you know, even if you just pick up one or two things from it, that would be fantastic. For those of you who, you know, may not have heard of us, what it is, what it can do, that kind of thing, I'm not going to go into massive detail, but by all means, after this call, we'll share my details. And if anybody wants to get in touch, or if you want me to run through anything in more detail, then please do so. So I'm hoping if I share my screen, I'm hoping, right. Can everybody see my presentation there now? I'm hoping, because I can't see anything now apart from my presentation on screen. So I'm hoping that everybody can see it. Brilliant. Right. From the beginning, here we go. Okay. So what is Sell2Wales? How can we help the business succeed? This, here we go. So this is what I'm going to cover roughly today. What it is, registering with single sign-on or SOC, different types of notices, searching for contracts. And these are the important bits: alerts profile, public profile, QQs or quick quotes, and then a little bit of an overview. So what is Sell2Wales? The long answer: Sell2Wales is the portal where Welsh public sector organisations post their contract opportunities. It's a vital business development tool for finding opportunities within the public and private sector. We have had private sector before, notably Aston Martin. Public notices and invitation-only notices, i.e. QQs, are issued by buyers through the site. So that's the long-winded version. Short version, think of it as a shop window or a yellow pages for your business. It's where the public sector buyers post their notices, so where you as suppliers can view those. And obviously, as suppliers, you're made aware of the opportunities. As buyers, they can use Sell2Wales as that business directory. So why is it important for my business and how does it work? Good news is it's simple, easy to use, and it's absolutely free because we are the Welsh Government's procurement portal. We're subject to obviously public scrutiny, public spend. We're there to help and support SMEs. That is the only reason for our existence. Unlike some other procurement portals that exist that charge, we don't charge anything for our service. And as Ellie mentioned, over £6.3 billion worth of public sector spend annually. This isn't a really important stat. About 79% of those are smaller contract opportunities. So if you just do the maths quickly, 79% of 6.3 billion, that's a lot of money out there. And the whole purpose of this session more than anything is just to give you an idea of how you as SMEs, as businesses, as suppliers can get access and be part of that supply chain. So Sign on Cymru, as I mentioned, we are Welsh Government. We're also part of the Business Wales digital platforms. So you've got the Business Wales website. You've got us, you've got BOSS, which is the business online support service. So these are free online courses or bite-sized chunks of information that you can access. There is a new Sell2Wales module on there. So I would encourage you to pop on there and have a look at that. And also helpWhether, which is a new service that we've launched. And this provides a limited free translation service for your business. So things like menus, pamphlets, flyers, that kind of thing, that if you want to, start using more Welsh in your business, then jump onto that. By having a single sign-on account, so if you're new to Sell2Wales and you register, you'll register through Sell2, you'll go into the single sign-on portal, create your single sign-on account, and you can jump in between all of these different mod services with just that single sign-on. So searching for contracts on Sell2, there's a couple of ways that you can do it. There's the good old-fashioned way. On the front page, you can search for notices. So as you can see from my screen here, you can do it by keywords, by the buyer name. So for example, if you know of the buying organisation that's publishing notices, Welsh Government, Transport for Wales, to name a couple. Reference number, if you know a notice has been published and you know the reference number, you can put it in there. And you can search by different types, whether they be current, future PIN notices, or the past opportunities from that buying organisation. Search by location and by category. So just to give you some idea, and I'll cover it in a little while, all notices that are above threshold, so it used to be OJU, so it's the official journal of the European Union. From the 1st of January this year, we then moved to FTS, which is Find a Tender Service. So that's the UK version or UK equivalent or replacement rather of OJU. So anything that's above threshold. So for goods and services, it's 173,500. For construction works, it's anything over 4 million. Anything above that threshold gets published through Sell2, pushed up to FTS and pulled back down. So as you can see from that slide there, there'll be, we pull notices in from across the UK, all public sector e-sender services. So that's the kind of the old-fashioned way. So some of the notice types are mentioned there. So site notices. Now these are anything between the QQ threshold, quick quote threshold, which is 25k or under, up to that threshold. So 25k to 173, they can be published on Sell2Wales as a site notice. They're only on Sell2, they don't get pushed up to FTS or anything. So you can see them from the search screen that I showed earlier on. Prior information notices or PINs. Now these are kind of a bit of a heads up. TfW published one recently about the upcoming station improvement framework, and that basically says within the next 6 to 12 months we're going to be publishing a notice. This is what we're looking to procure. These are the Cpv codes that you'll need to be aware of, and this is a little bit about that notice and about the project that's coming up. So they can be published, as I said, 6 to 12 months ahead, so that it's always good to get your alerts category set up to match Cpv codes. I'll talk about them in a little while. And then finally, FTS or Find Attender Service notices. So these are the big ones. These are anything above the threshold. And again, they're published through Sell2, pushed up to FTS, and we pull them back down. So this slide looks a bit complicated, but essentially on the right-hand side, you've got the buying organizations, and they publish the types of notices. So at the top, you've got the PIN, you got the site notice or FTS notice, and you got the QQ. So the middle three, from top, middle, and bottom, they appear on the site. However, the QQs, as you can see from the bottom, if you follow the QQ timeline across, bottom left here, the buyer uses the public profile search, and they're sent directly from the buyer to that supplier. And the supplier will get eventually a notification in their alerts. So different to site notices and PINs and FTS, they're not published on the site. So that's a really key point to remember. So quickly benefits for buyers, we can use it to source suppliers quickly and easily. It utilizes a secure post box. So every notice type that's published or managed through Sell2Wales is done in full compliance with procurement rules and regulations. So for a QQ, it opens up a secure post box between the buyer and the supplier. Nobody else has access to it. And it's fully transparent. So if a buyer, for example, was open to challenge, that whole process can be viewed, the submissions, the number of suppliers invited. I can, as a buyer, I can produce a report through Sell2 showing who I sent the QQs out to, who responded, who I awarded it, who was the successful supplier. And as suppliers, again, you can easily accept or decline QQs through your mobile phone. Even it's that simple. You could be sitting in your van, get a ping, the email into your inbox saying this buyer has invited you to tender for this opportunity. You think, right, okay, I'll record my interest. Bang, that's it. It's that simple. So I mentioned alerts profile. This is the really. This is the clever way that Sell2, you can use it cleverly. You can use the system to do the work for you. The alert profile matches your profile. So this is your own supplier profile now with contract opportunities and send them to you for free via email. It's that simple. Setting up an alert profile, you'll need to have a look at your Cpv codes or common procurement vocabulary codes. These are standardized codes that are used across the EU by all procurement. So it's a way of setting, a common set of categories against goods, works, services, etc. So when a buyer is putting together a contract opportunity, they'll choose the relevant Cpv codes for that procurement. So the thing to consider here is that if you're a business, so for example, if I'm a housing contractor and I'm looking to build a new estate, I'd be looking for fencing. I may be looking at groundworks, construction, fencing, 3 or 4 different Cpv codes. So it's important that not one Cpv code can cover maybe all of your works, but maybe you need to choose 2 or 3 just to make sure that you're there and you're getting the alerts. As you can see here, you can filter down. You can either choose the top parents, as we call them. So in this, you've got agricultural, food, computer-related services, construction, and you can drill down then even further, so construction work, and then that drills down even further and further. The other thing that you can do is you can choose the geographical location that allows buyers to see where you're willing to work. So if you're based up in the north, you don't want to be spending time and money traveling. You just want opportunities that are relevant to you up in the north. You can select that region. And this is what they look like. So you can see from my notice panel here, these are the recent alerts that I've had. Because I do so many demo, my inbox, my email alerts is just constant. But you can go in, you can clear them, you can select all, you can select one. You can do them, on a regular basis. But it's important that that's your landing page. That's where they land. So when selecting your categories, the other thing to consider as well is on the front of Sell2, we have what are called project pages. Now we set these up for some of the big projects that we've been working with over the years. So TFW, for example, there's when a tier 1 constructor such as Kia, Alan Griffiths, just to name a couple, when they get appointed by that project, we then work with them, we set them up a project page, and they can use that project page then to link to their notices. So when they publish a notice, it'll pull through to the project page. So when choosing your alerts, choose the project page that might be relevant to you as well. That way you're not missing out on anything. So the public profile, I touched on this briefly. So you've got an alerts profile, which is your emails. Think of it that way. Your public profile, think of this as your virtual business card. This is your chance to show buyers what you can do, who you are, what goods, works, services you provide. Think of it as I mentioned earlier on, that virtual shop where you can pin your virtual business card to that virtual pin board. So me as a buyer, come along, open the door, have a look at the notice board, thinking, right, I'm looking for a fencing contractor. So look at the virtual business card, say, oh, there you go. That's one that does fencing. We'll choose them. So it builds on the information that you already put in when you first register. So what does a good alerts profile look like? So company name may sound obvious. Logo, again, may sound obvious. But if you consider most buying organizations, most procurement teams, they may only consist of 1 or 2 people. They may be massively busy. They may be doing 3 or 4 quotes, at any one time on any one project. They haven't got the time to be going in depth to search for buyers' information. The more you can put into this at a glance, the more likely you are to be accepted by that buyer to invite to tender. So keywords, I mentioned these earlier on, particularly important in the in the wake of the troubled times that we've been through. We were finding that a lot of suppliers, when they originally registered, created their profile, they may have been in the manufacturing sector, for example. And the live example that we've used is that you had a car manufacturing or a plant manufacturing company. Set the keywords up. So it was manufacturing, it was plant machinery, it was fabrication, it was parts, etc. They then diversified during the pandemic to then produce parts for ventilator machines. So it could be 3D printing, could be parts of ventilators, etc. So the NHS buyers or the public sector buyers then looking for a supplier for parts for ventilating machines, looked at keywords, put those in. That original supplier, because they hadn't updated their supplier finder profile, wasn't on that list. So it's important to keep your keywords and your profile up to date. Company description, again, as I mentioned, this is your chance to shine. It gives you, supplier, that chance to show that buyer what you can do. Regions as well. Again, if you're based up in the north and you may not necessarily want to travel down, to South, Mid, East Wales, whatever, it's important to put that in. And also, and again, this is something that's worth considering, I am an SME. Many buyers now, as part of their social responsibility, as part of going forward in the contracts, they are tasked and they are actually looking specifically for SMEs. So again, it may sound obvious, but put that in there. I'll show you in a little while why that's important as well. So the QQ process. QuickQuotes is an online quotation facility which allows buyers to obtain competitive quotes electronically for low value requirements. Sounds a mouthful. As I said, think of them as low value, quick quotes, quick wins, shortened contract. I'm a buyer. I'm looking for 3 suppliers to quote. I'm using Sell2Wales, going to use the supplier search. Bang, there you go. Job done. So how do they work? As I said, they're sent from the buyer directly through to the suppliers that they choose. And this is the key point in this slide. They're only distributed to the selected suppliers and are not made public on the portal. So in this example, the buyer is ABC Construction. They're looking for 2 shipping containers. So the scope of the contract is going to be to provide 2 shipping containers or modified containers. So during the QQ process, I'm going to select Cpv codes. So buyers can select multiple Cpv codes that's relevant to what they're doing, and they can use either the search or the browse categories here. So as you can see on this example, the Cpv codes that I've chosen are large containers, standard freight containers, and shipping operations. So the supplier is Cargo Worldwide. So they're an existing supplier on Sell2Wales. They've set their alerts profile up under materials and products, and they've selected what they thought was relevant to them, which is tanks, reservoirs, containers, central heating, rotates and boilers. They haven't chosen the same Cpv codes that large containers might be relevant to. So as a result, when that buyer is looking for suppliers, that supplier is not going to be made aware of that opportunity. If Cargo Worldwide had done a bit more refining and opened up the tanks, reservoirs category, they would have found large containers. So as you can see, just from that slide there, tanks, reservoirs there, if they'd have clicked on the little plus button underneath, it would have opened up and they would have been able to choose those relevant category codes. So this is the list that the buyer saw from selecting those Cpv codes, and this is how the buyer can choose their suppliers. And they can click on the view supplier, find a profile to get a little bit more information about that buyer, the supplier, sorry. So as a buyer, I could do it by keywords. And a couple of slides back, I mentioned in your supplier finder profile why it's important to select SMEs. As you can see from here, I can refine my search to only show me SMEs. So unless I've put on my profile, yes, I'm an SME, you can see again there, you're not going to be visible. So it's laboring a point, I apologize, but this is really important, you know, what a buyer looks for. And this is a really good visual for, you know, what I'd be looking for as a buyer. Keywords, logo, contact information, description of goods or services, and a link to your website. Again, may sound simple, but if I'm a buyer and I'm selecting 3 suppliers that may be similar in what they do, I may want to have a look at their website to have a look at their past work or their current portfolio, just to give me that little bit more info on that supplier. So there you go. In summary, that's an introduction and overview to Sell2, a bit about your public profile, your project pages, alerts profile, Cpv codes, and QQs. Now I'm going to hopefully minimize that, and now I'm hoping you can see this is a notice that I've published. Oh, well, I've got published on Sell2, so I'll just jump into this. Is giving you a kind of a bit of behind the scenes view of what a buyer would be looking for. This is how buyers work. So your control panel, so supply control panel, you'll have the search function for notices. So these are your current notices that you've had an interest in, your alerts, as I mentioned earlier on. So by clicking there, you can see all the alerts that I've been having. So there's quite a few of them. But I can delete all on this, but you can delete them as you're going along that way. So it helps you tidy up a little bit. So we're going to my accounts, and again, supply control panel. So these are your responses. You remember I mentioned for between a QQ that an electronic post box is opened. This is where you as a supplier can view the responses of the ones that you've done. And this is where you can edit and manage your alerts profile. So you can see, you can choose, and remember I mentioned earlier on drilling down, so you can have a look, thinking, right, building construction work. So if you're looking for, so you can see how these refine down for even further. Or if you're not sure which one it is, then just choose the top one. That way then you'll be pulling through all the ones underneath. And then your public profile, as I mentioned, currently I've got mine hidden, make it visible. So you put your basic information in there, your logo, your regions, company description, keywords, save it. There you go. That's how literally how quick that can be for you to keep in a hold. So that's very briefly your supply, and then you can you've got all the stuff to do for your accounts and stuff there. So there you go. This is a buyer version. So my buyer control panel is slightly different. You can see where on your supplier control panel you had search for notices. This is where I can create my notices. And this is the key bit. So if I'm a buyer, so let's say I'm a housing contractor, I'm looking for a fencing contractor. Let's go into supply finder, right? So I'm going to be looking for, I'm based up here in Gwynedd. Keywords, I'm going to be looking for fencing. This is where I can do a bit of pre-work. So there you go. There's 89 suppliers that have got their supplier finder profile that are based in Gwynedd, and they've got fencing somewhere in their keywords. I could do it by Cpv code, by categories as well. But you can see here, and this is a really good example because this is live. So I'm thinking, right, I've got 89 suppliers there now. I haven't got time to look for 89, so let's filter through. So there's one that haven't got logos, and others, and others, and others. So thinking, right, okay, the ones that got logos, of that lot, I'm probably going to go with them, because in looking at the keywords as well, and the description, some of these haven't got much of a description in there. Doesn't tell me much about what they do. There we go, that one. So you can see that's a really good live example of how a buyer does that first filter. So as I mentioned earlier on, I've got a site notice. So I'm going to go into just to give you an idea. So I'm going to go into a contract notice. This is a standard contract notice that's published as a site notice or an FTS, is exactly the same. So it gives you, excuse me, an idea of the number of steps that I've got to go through to publish a notice. Now, I'm hoping you can see the drop down on when I'm sharing my screen. There's all of these sections that you've got to go through. There's about 20 odd, if not more. So if I go back now into Quick Quotes, and we'll look at shipping containers. That's what I was demoing earlier on. Edit. There you go. From there, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 questions, 12 sections from the standard, which is already pre-populated, through to distributing my QQ, 12 steps. So I've gone through all the previous steps. So there's my QQ ready to publish. So I'm looking for a description. So this is what I'm looking for: provision of 2 shipping containers. Scope of the contract is going to be ×2 standard or modified shipping containers. Time limit of when I want the quotes in by, estimated award date, and the Cpv codes. So these are the important bits. So I'm now going to, this is live, so I'm going to be very, very, very careful. I'm going to be looking through, I'm going to restrict it to the Cpv codes that I put in during my creation. And there you go. It gives me a list of all the suppliers that are on there that match those Cpv codes. So it's 119. So I'm thinking, right, I can filter down now. I only want them from my region. So there we go. It's filtered it down straight away to 7. So I'm thinking, right, that's a little bit more useful, a little bit more refined. Or, excuse me, I can switch to only showing SMEs and restricting to the CPV codes. There's 83 on that one. So I'm thinking, right, okay, let's go keywords. I'm only looking for fencing contractors. There you go, only one. So you can see how important having your supplier finder profile is, because let's unrestrict that now. By taking out the CPV codes and just going to keywords, those suppliers that had a supplier finder profile with fencing in their keywords are now on my list. There you go, I can have a look at them. So I'm going to choose those. I'm going to add them in. So those are now in my distribution list. So there you go. So I'm going to remove these because these are live and I don't want to be sending them out. But basically from my distribution list, I would hit distribute, and that sends that QQ then out to only those 4 suppliers that I've chosen on there. So I'm going to take those out. So there's nobody in my distribution list now. So I'm going to cancel them coming back. So there we go. So I can edit that, and I'm ready to go. So I'm hoping that gives you, I'll stop sharing now, an idea on QQs, not only from your supplier perspective, but also from a buyer and how those buyers actually publish those QQs. So we use it as that database. So I think I'm okay on time. I'm hoping I am.
Yes, you are, Tristan. I wanted to say, now we've looked at Sell2Wales and QuickQuotes. Can you, before we go on to Howard, although Howard will tell us sort of the business Wales support, what are the opportunities at the moment? What are some of the key opportunities that you've sort of scoured on Sell2Wales?
Definitely. At the moment, there's going to be one of the key ones that's coming up is the Transport for Wales Station Improvement Plan. That's a framework that's going to be coming up it's a 2-year framework. So they're looking for suppliers to get onto that. That's a key one. The project pages, we've got, we're doing a few Meet the Buyer events as well coming up. Hale Construction is one. Alan Griffiths, they're always looking for construction projects as well. So yeah, have a look at on the project page, or have a look, just put in, search for contracts, just have a look, general search. There's key projects that come up as they're coming up. There's another one that's going to be coming down the line eventually, is the Green Link Interconnector project from Ireland to Pembrokeshire. That's a massive project, and they're going to be looking for local supply chain opportunities as well.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Thanks, Tristan. That was
No
really
worries.
great. We'll pick up some questions afterwards. Howard, are you there?
Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Hi.
So Tristan and I, it's a bit of a bog-off situation. So you buy one, get one free, but you actually get both of us free with Welsh Government, which is pretty good news, which you don't get over the rest of the UK. So everything we do is cost-free for all the SMEs, and it is SME based. So if you're a large company, you can't access this support. I just wanted a couple of things that Tris has been saying, just to sort of hammer home the importance of QuickQuotes. So when I first started this job about 3.5 years ago, we got a lot of feedback from suppliers saying, where do I see these opportunities? They always go out of Wales. They always go to the incumbents. I never get these opportunities. Well, they are there, but unless you're in it, you won't win it. So Tris and I spent a lot of time over the last couple of years finding a way of presenting all these virtually, so we can see more people rather than having to go out and do roadshows around the country. And obviously COVID, the unfortunate situation of COVID has actually helped us move forward with doing virtual events. And I've just put a load of information in the chat there to see where you can find these events. So if you go into Events Finder, and there's also some specific webinars there to log on to, which, as I said, are free, which will give you more insight into what Tris has been talking about today. So the first one there is based up in the north, and then there's a although it is virtual, but it's run by Business Wales and North, and then a how to tender one, which is more about a whole overview of how to tender, including the Sell2Wales use and QuickQuotes. One of the things that Tris and I have been working on over the last 2 years is more virtual Meet the Buyer events and getting buyers to be able to see and engage with local suppliers. And as Tris pointed out, it's in there that they have to do this as part of their social value. So this is something we're working really closely with them. And some good news for you. So when companies like Kia, Allen Griffiths, Morgan Sindall, all the rest of them are looking for local suppliers, we help them to do that. And if you're registered on Sell2Wales, then Tris sends out an email based on that information to you as a supplier to help to get you to attend these events. Now, the sort of headline figure here is that 64% of the people who attend these events have never been seen before by those suppliers. And Tris and I are tracking the contract wins, and they're winning millions of pounds worth of business. So annually, Business Wales help small businesses, including micro businesses, to win tens of millions of pounds worth of business. So please use our service. We can help you through it. A lot of the stuff that Tris has spoken to you about today are in our workshop, but also we offer one-to-one support. So my email address is on the top there. So please get in contact. We'll be doing a bit of a survey after this. So if you can answer that, and part of that allows you to request that support, that free support. So please do so. That's what we're here to do. As I'm on here, I've got to tell you about a few other things that Business Wales can offer you support with. So not just tendering, but also we offer support, general business support, using advisors who have got the T-shirt, let's say, who have had their own businesses or worked at large organisations. HR, sustainability, skills, that's apprenticeships, which are obviously very high profile at the moment, and the grants that are available to take on apprentices. International trade, we have a mentoring service, this is really good. And obviously on the tendering side, we're running workshops all the time, not just introductory ones, but also more advanced ones as well. So that's really what I wanted to say. Those links are in the chat. So and my email addresses. So just contact me if you've got any questions. And that's me done, because I was only allowed to do 2 or 3 minutes. As Chris took up all my time.
I think you'll probably do a few more minutes now, Howard, when we get the questions. So I'll start with the question and answers. We've had a number of questions that were posed pre the event. So the first one of those, what are the minimum policy, insurance and business compliant documentation control that you need to be in place before you start bidding? And that's from Viv Compton, Industry Learning Solutions.
Shall I start off with that?
Yeah.
Go on, how would you start?
This is a bit of a moving target, actually, because what Tris and I have been doing over the last couple of years is trying to make sure that there's few onerous questions asked as possible in tender requirements. So if it's a small tender for, I don't know, for the supply of 100 boxes of toilet rolls, why do you need £20 million worth of insurance? So we've been working with buyers to try and make those questions as least onerous as possible. And that's an ongoing process, to be honest. But it's not something that we have control over. So some of the buyers have been working with £20 million over every single thing they put out for the last 20 years. So getting them to realise that actually restricts some small SMEs, some micro SMEs from bidding is now becoming a bit of an issue. So we're hoping as we go forward, some of those insurance and compliance documentation control that you're talking about will become a lot less onerous. And Tris and I have been working very closely with Transport for Wales, for instance, to make sure that they can engage with, because they have certain restrictions around rail and the way that you work with rail companies. So we're trying to take, make it a lot easier for small businesses to engage with them. So hopefully that answers that question, but it's an ongoing process.
Okay, thanks Howard for that. Second question, and this is from Anthony Worsley, Pixar Fusion. Do you foresee some form of standardization in tendering requirements and processes? And I don't know whether that's Howard or Tristan on that one.
I think probably I can pick up a bit on that one as well. As Howard said, again, this is a bit of a moving feast because of the essentially within public procurement, there are different authorities, different buying organisations use different e-tendering tools, for example. So you've got eTender Wales, Borough, Proactis, to name a few. So until you get each and every local authority, every public sector buyer to use the same system, it's going to be difficult. However, Welsh Government have recently just commissioned and just finished a piece of work to look at exactly this question, look at e-procurement across Wales. So the results of that are being pulled together. Off the back of that, then we'll be looking at ways, certainly from a Sell2 perspective, how we can standardize and make things a lot simpler and a lot easier for suppliers. The aim being that, from a supplier perspective, it becomes more of a one-stop shop rather than, for example, seeing a notice on Sell2, then having to log into eTender Wales to respond to that notice. One of the things we're looking at potentially is, more integration between the two systems, so that the process becomes less clunky and a lot more seamless. So I'm hoping that answers that.
No, thank you for that, Tristan. It does. It definitely takes us further forward with the. I think tendering has been a bit clunky, as you said, in the past, and I think it's trying to make it a bit more streamlined, which is a really good thing. So we have another question. With COVID cases seeming to be on the rise, do you foresee any tendering opportunities for making spaces safe using AI? And that's from Richard Brain in Evolve Robotics.
I think, yeah, do you want to pick up on that one?
So, I mean, obviously AI is for me, I mean, I come from that background, so it's really interesting to me, and AI is definitely going to be a requirement for in lots of different opportunities. So the only again, what Tris has explained today will give you a warning when those opportunities do arise. But I'm just going to post a link for you. You should see that. So there's a life sciences hub, which sort of look after all this sort of innovation type stuff, and lots to do with the NHS actually. Tristan and I've been working with the NHS actually with QuickQuotes, getting them to use QuickQuotes more. There's a trial going on in lots of different trusts at the moment, so hopefully you can see lots more opportunities coming from the NHS. But the life sciences hub, if you go into that, you'd be able to contact them to find out what opportunities there may be available for you. And they're generally very, very interested to hear from people. So just go in there and you'll find contact details for them. If you have any difficulties, get back to me and I'll make a direct contact for you.
Thank you for that, Howard. So moving on, because we have another 15 minutes for questions, but we do have quite a few. What impact on tendering and procurement will the public sector net zero targets have? And that's Sarah from Chambers Wales.
Okay, shall I start off?
You say that there's a couple of questions that have come up in the Q&A I'd like to pick up on. So yeah, do you want to go on this one, Howard?
Yeah, so obviously this is a big net zero is a huge subject and one that Wales are really in the forefront of in many ways through the Future Generations Act. There's a whole piece of work going on at the moment in social value which encompasses this, and it hasn't gone through the ministerial approval yet. So that's being done, and Tris and I work on some of the, we're involved in some of the working groups with that. So we put forward a lot of ideas as well to help in that. So effectively what's going to happen is, and there are tenders already come out with some of those social value questions in it, although it hasn't been fully approved yet. But there will be certain questions that you have to answer. How you know, for instance, what vehicles are you using in your business at the moment? Are they hybrid? Are they fully electric? So they are scored. So in the past, it hasn't been scored, and it's sort of been a bit of a loose way of identifying how businesses are looking at this subject. So now there's actually scoring. So there you'll see scoring charts. So if you're using, I don't think, because it hasn't been actually the figures worked out yet, but if you're saying I'm going to use, for this contract, I'm going to use all electric vehicles, you might have a score of 5 or something. So that's how it's going to work. So there's a lot of work going on. There's a lot of work that's already gone on, and we're pretty close actually to being able to deliver that. I think it's going to be much fairer for both buyers and suppliers to have a proper scoring mechanism to be able to, you know, it's not just about net zero, by the way, it's all about social value as well. If you win a contract, what social value you're going to give into the local economy as well. So it's all encompasses into this piece of work that's going on at the moment.
Well, thanks for that, Howard. Tristan, I know there's one question here you definitely want to take next in terms of the temptation for a buyer to only look at maybe the first 4 names that appear on any list that they generated through Sell2Wales.
Absolutely. I think that's something, you know, I kind of briefly touched on there. I mean, particularly with a lot of the procurement teams that, you know, as I said, there may be, you know, Sell2Wales, there's me. So I manage the site, the portal and everything else. You can imagine the kind of time pressure and, you know, workload that we're under. And you're right, you're absolutely right. There is potentially that temptation for, particularly, you know, as I demonstrated earlier on, if you're hitting, you know, 83 or more results back, you need to filter those responses down quickly. Keywords, company description, the more information you as a buyer can pick up quickly at a glance to fulfill your requirements of getting 3 or more quotes in, the better you're going to be.
So almost like an interview. It's almost, you almost need to treat it like an interview. You put as much as you can onto your CV, picture, contact details, everything, so that people can actually see who you are.
That's a really good analogy. Yeah, that's brilliant, Ellie. Absolutely.
And they will only normally pick 3 to 5 people. So you can imagine, you know, if you're treat it as an extra salesman for your business. So, you know, if you were a salesman banging on somebody's door, you wouldn't throw in your business card and run off, would you? You'd spend time explaining the best parts about your business. So it's really important for the buyer that's there for them quickly, because they're just going to pick maybe 3 of you to quote. Now, how good is that? So instead of an open tender where there could be hundreds of you, there's only 2 competitors. So make sure that your profile is as good as possible. So that's what today is all about, really. And the buyers want to see that. They want to be able to choose the best people to offer the bid to.
Excellent, thank you for that. So there's someone who's new to Sell2Wales and would like to learn a bit more how to respond to alerts. They receive a lot of alerts, but really are quite unsure as to what to do, as few of them that the person has emailed back haven't really responded. So are they doing the right thing? Yeah,
what I would suggest in that one, and Howard will pick up and, you know, back me up on this one, is arrange a session with one of our tendering advisors or attend the How to Tender workshop. Now, they are set up to deal with exactly this kind of question. They'll provide you, you know, the one-to-one, they'll sit with you, they'll work through how to submit a successful tender. And also, you know, in this case, if you're emailing and you haven't had a response, then you know, you're, as a supplier, you're entitled to ask for feedback as to why that bid hasn't been successful. There's also the supplier feedback service. So there's all these kind of, you know, supports and advice on offer. And the other thing as well is, depending on the type of notice. Sorry, I couldn't get my words out then. If it's a QQ, and that supplier is looking at choosing 3 suppliers, for example, now, once they've chosen the successful supplier, they will then publish a contract award. So that will automatically generate an email to A, to the successful supplier, and B, to the unsuccessful suppliers. So you should always have a notification one way or the other whether your bid has been successful or not. And again, as I said, you know, there's nothing stopping you from contacting that buyer to say, look, you know, what's going on? Why wasn't my bid successful? Why haven't I heard anything? So yeah, golden piece of advice on this one. Get in touch with Business Wales and get that tendering support.
And you can do that through the poll that we're going to put out afterwards if you want, or you can message me directly and I'll arrange that support for you.
There you go.
Excellent. Thank you both. Another technical question. Justine Gaffney is just finishing her registration, but she doesn't have a DUNS number.
Okie dokie.
And she's not quite sure that the services she provides are applicable to this, because she's a video production service.
A couple of bits on that one then. DUNS number, there's a workaround. In your company settings, you can tick the box to say, I haven't got my DUNS number right now, but I'm happy to update that later date. Or you can type in 12345 into the DUNS number. That's the workaround. In terms of
there, won't you? If you say do it later, you'll every now and again
you'll keep getting reminders. Yeah. So the 12345 is the easiest to work around that one. But in terms of video production, there is, you know, we've attended various business shows over the years. You know, we've probably been to, I can't even think how many. There's work out there for all sorts, particularly, I'll give you an example is the bypass that they're building up here in Caernarfon, the Bontnewydd bypass, Griffiths Construction and TRJ and a few of the others. They're looking at drone companies to produce, you know, the overhead and the flyover and the update. They're often looking for video companies to produce, you know, promotional videos. So there's all that kind of, so it may not be immediately relevant. You're thinking, well, there's not that much on there, but when they start issuing those subcontract opportunities, or they're looking for suppliers to provide goods or services that they haven't got themselves in-house, there's always, you know, there's work out there. So again, more than happy to sit with you and work through Cpv Codes and find, you know, something that might be relevant.
Excellent. We've got a couple more questions that I'd like to fit in just before the end. So one of them I think is a really sort of difficult one, because IR35 has increased the complex nature of sort of sole traders and consultants. So this is Maggie McElroy Gray. As a sole trader, limited company, the biggest impact to my new business has been IR35. What support is available for this group of businesses and consultants?
So that's probably one for me, isn't it?
I was going to say that, Howard, that's one for you.
Yeah, so we've got advisors who are really experienced in that. So again, just give us a shout and I'll arrange some support for you. Because there's other things we get involved in as well. There's a new VAT thing that came out for a rule that came out this year, reverse VAT in the construction industry. So we actually ran some workshops on that in advance with an accountancy company so they could provide support for that as well. So there's lots of different ways we do things and signpost things. So yeah, happy to arrange support on that as well. So if you are already a Business Wales client, you should be able to go to your support, your relationship manager that you've been allocated. If you're not already a client, then we'll get you registered and get somebody to come and talk to you about it.
Fabulous, thank you, Howard. And I think this is Tristan. You referred to the option to flag as an SME. Have you considered an option to flag as a charity or social enterprise?
Absolutely.
So,
Again,
third sector.
Yeah, if you look into your company settings, in your profile, your organization details, the first tab, right at the bottom, there's an option, third sector. Please indicate if your company is a third sector organization. Tick this box and update. That will then, if I'm a buyer and I'm looking for a third sector organization running a report, the search finder, that'll flag those up that way.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tristan, already sorted on. So thank you very much. I don't think there are any more questions, but I can see there's quite a lot going on in the chat, sort of on follow-ups and thank yous and information. So I just wanted to remind people that the survey is in the chat and we'd love you to fill it out for us if you would. We'll send through all the details from Howard in the chat and through email. And really just wanted to thank everybody for attending. Thank you to Tristan and Howard, because having done quite a bit on Sell2Wales and have worked for and with Business Wales over the last few years, they're so very helpful and up to date with a lot of the stuff that's being thrown at small businesses, so that sometimes is really difficult to deal with, plus doing the day job. So thank you very much to everyone. Thanks to Chambers Wales for giving us this opportunity. And thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks everybody.